Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to stand before you today as we reflect on the incredible truth that many of us are chosen for something far beyond our understanding. You see, our lives were not shaped by accident. They are a carefully orchestrated masterpiece, and each of us was designed for a unique purpose. I want to share with you 5 signs, 5 undeniable indicators that you were chosen by God for something greater, something special. The first sign is an unusual passion and curiosity. From the very beginning, there was something different about the way you approached the world. While other children were fascinated by the typical playthings of their age, you found yourself drawn to something deeper, something that seemed to call you from the very core of your being. It wasn't just a fleeting interest or a passing fancy, it was a deep and abiding curiosity that set you apart from those around you. This curiosity wasn't ordinary, it was a profound desire to understand the world, to uncover the hidden truths, and to explore the mysteries of life. You had a longing to know more, not just about the surface of things, but about the very essence of them. From a young age, you may have found yourself questioning things others simply accepted without thought. While children your age were content with simple explanations, you were the one asking why, how, and what if. You weren't satisfied with surface-level answers. Something in you longed to go deeper, to get to the heart of matters that others didn't even notice. Perhaps you spent hours lost in books, not simply reading to pass time, but to understand the stories and the lessons behind them. Maybe you were drawn to nature, observing the way trees grew, how animals behaved, or the quiet rhythm of the changing seasons. There was something about the world that intrigued you, and your passion for discovery seemed to come from a place that others around you didn't quite understand. While others may have been absorbed in the immediate joys of childhood games, toys, or simple pleasures, you were cultivating a deep sense of purpose. It wasn't that you knew exactly what your purpose was, rather, you felt an undeniable pull towards something beyond the ordinary. There was a sense of destiny that called to you even when you didn't have the language to articulate it. You felt as though your heart was speaking a language of its own, guiding you toward things that would shape your future. This wasn't just about being curious in the traditional sense, it was about sensing that there was more to life than what was immediately visible. You likely found yourself immersing in topics that others considered too complex or too mature for your age. Perhaps you were drawn to the arts, music, or philosophy, areas of life that required deep introspection and reflection. You were able to grasp concepts that others might dismiss as abstract or far beyond their reach. While other children might have been playing sports or following trends, you were engrossed in something more profound. It might have been the way you felt a connection to music, not just listening to the notes but feeling their power to evoke emotion, or how you saw deeper meaning in a painting or a poem. This passion, this pull towards things that went beyond the superficial, was not random. It was the beginning of a greater calling being forged in your heart. You may have also felt a sense of urgency that others didn't understand. It wasn't just about learning for the sake of learning, it was about uncovering something that would help you navigate the journey ahead. In the same way that a seed deep within the soil knows it must push upward toward the light, you felt an intrinsic need to push past the limitations of your surroundings and search for something greater. Your curiosity wasn't driven by idle fascination, it was fueled by a deep-seated desire to understand why things are the way they are and how they connect to the bigger picture. Your mind was always asking questions that others weren't asking, probing into areas that seemed out of reach. This sense of purpose might have been unsettling at times. There were moments when your interests made you feel out of place, like you were living in a world that wasn't quite aligned with the depth of your thoughts. While children around you were preoccupied with the latest trends or fleeting fancies, you were already looking past those things, trying to make sense of life on a broader scale. You could have easily felt isolated or misunderstood, but in reality, your passion was a sign that you were being set apart for something greater. Your curiosity was not just a childhood trait, it was a divine stirring, a glimpse into the larger purpose God had for you. As you grew older, this passion likely didn't diminish. In fact, it may have intensified as you began to understand that the things you were passionate about were not just hobbies or passing interests, they were the key to unlocking your purpose in life. The interests that set you apart as a child were not coincidental, they were the early signs of the gifts, talents, and calling that were already being cultivated in you. The sense of purpose you felt then was not a fleeting feeling, it was the foundation of a greater destiny, a life that would one day be marked by the very things that captivated you as a child. Even now, as an adult, you can look back and see the trail of passion and curiosity that led you to where you are today. It wasn't random, it wasn't by chance, it was God's hand, guiding you from an early age, preparing you for a future that only you were created to fulfill. The second sign is a sense of unfulfilled potential. From an early age, there was an inner knowing, a subtle yet undeniable awareness that you were meant for something greater than what you were experiencing in the moment. It wasn't something you could fully explain or put into words, but you felt it deeply, this stirring inside of you, that there was more to life than the circumstances you found yourself in. As a child, you may have been surrounded by the familiar, by what others saw as ordinary, but you always felt there was something about you, something within you that was unique. You couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to your existence than the day-to-day activities that filled your time. This sense of unfulfilled potential was never about arrogance or pride. It was an inward recognition that you had something within you that had not yet come to fruition. It was as if you could see glimpses of the future, but the fullness of it was still veiled. This feeling wasn't about material things or external success, it was about purpose. There was a part of you that understood on a deep level that you were destined for something more, something with lasting meaning. You didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle yet, but you knew, even as a child, that your life was supposed to matter. You could feel it in the quiet moments when you were alone with your thoughts, or during times when you looked out into the world and wondered why things were the way they were. You could sense that your life wasn't meant to be lived in the margins, simply following the flow of ordinary existence. There was a greater calling, a higher purpose that you couldn't yet articulate, but which stirred within your spirit, urging you to look beyond the present and into the future. As a child, you might have tried to fit in with others, to engage in the same activities and entertain the same ideas, but there was always something within you that set you apart. Perhaps you found it difficult to relate to your peers, or you felt that the things that excited them didn't quite resonate with you. You could have been in a room full of people, yet still you felt different, as though your heart was calling you towards something far beyond what was visible or apparent. It wasn't loneliness you felt, but a kind of quiet yearning for something more meaningful, something that spoke to the depths of who you were. There were moments when you might have looked around and wondered why you didn't quite fit into the mold others seemed to so easily slip into. You may have been uncertain about your place in the world, but the unease wasn't rooted in insecurity, it was the discomfort of knowing you weren't living in alignment with your full potential. It wasn't about seeking recognition or external validation, it was a deep, quiet knowing that you were capable of so much more than the world around you could see. Even as a child, you could sense that your life was meant to leave an impact. It wasn't just about achieving success or gaining approval from others, it was about fulfilling something deep within your soul. You may have seen others moving through life, seemingly content with their paths, while you felt a quiet dissatisfaction that you couldn't explain. This wasn't a sense of ingratitude or a desire for more material things, it was a holy dissatisfaction, a longing for your life to matter in a way that went beyond ordinary accomplishments. It was as if you were being called to something higher, something that would fulfill not just your dreams, but the very purpose for which you were created. This unfulfilled potential also had a spiritual dimension. There were times when you felt God's presence in your life, when the whispers of His calling were so clear that it took your breath away. You knew, deep down, that your life had a higher purpose, one that aligned with His greater plan. Even though you might not have understood all the details of that purpose at the time, you could feel the weight of it in your spirit. It was a sense that you were being molded and shaped for something significant, something that would unfold over time. And even though you didn't have the maturity or understanding to fully grasp it, there was an inner drive that kept you pressing forward. There were also moments when your heart would ache with the desire to live out this potential. You saw glimpses of what you could become and who you could impact, but those glimpses seemed so far out of reach, like a distant dream just beyond your grasp. Yet, despite the frustration of not yet being where you wanted to be, you could not shake the sense that the journey was leading somewhere extraordinary. It was as if God had planted a seed in your heart, and though the soil of your life was still being prepared, the seed was already sprouting, pushing its way through the ground, eager to grow into something beautiful. This sense of unfulfilled potential was not a burden, but a gift, one that God placed inside of you to guide you toward your divine purpose. Even when you were too young to fully understand it, that inner stirring was a signal that you were being prepared for something beyond your current understanding. It was a calling that would unfold in time as you grew into the person you were always meant to become. The third sign is unexplainable resilience. Even as a child, you displayed an extraordinary strength, a resilience that defied your age and the limitations of your circumstances. While many around you might have crumbled under pressure or been overwhelmed by the challenges they faced, you seemed to rise above them with a quiet, unshakable determination. It wasn't that you were immune to hardship, but rather that there was something inside you, a deep well of strength that enabled you to endure, to keep going when others might have given up. From an early age, you demonstrated an ability to face adversity head-on and find a way through it, no matter how daunting the path seemed. Perhaps you faced situations where most children would have felt defeated, yet you found a way to adapt and overcome. Whether it was in school, at home, or with friends, you exhibited a resilience that was far beyond your years. You didn't just accept the hardships you encountered, you faced them with a tenacity that reflected a strength of character few could understand. There was a quiet determination in you, a belief that no matter how difficult the situation, you would find a way to push through. It wasn't about avoiding pain or hardship, but about learning how to endure and thrive despite it. This resilience may have shown itself in small, everyday moments. When others would give up or become discouraged, you would find the strength to keep going. Perhaps it was during a time when you faced a personal loss, an illness, or a difficult family situation. While others might have faltered or been swallowed by their circumstances, you demonstrated an ability to remain strong and composed, even when it seemed like everything was falling apart. You might not have known it at the time, but those moments of endurance were a sign of the greater strength that was being developed within you, a strength that would serve you throughout your life. You weren't just surviving your challenges, you were growing through them. Each obstacle, each hardship was shaping you, molding your character, and teaching you valuable lessons that others would take years to learn. It was clear that you had an inner fortitude, a resolve that went beyond the superficial. When things became difficult, instead of giving in to despair, you found a way to adapt, to keep moving forward. You approached problems with a mindset that said, I may not know how I will overcome this, but I know I will. That kind of mental and emotional strength is rare, especially in a child, and it spoke to a deeper sense of purpose. This resilience wasn't always obvious to others. There were probably moments when people looked at you and didn't understand how you managed to keep going. It's possible they didn't see the inner battles you fought or the fears you overcame in silence. You may have had moments of doubt, of weariness, but even in those times, there was an inner voice that told you to keep moving, to push through. That voice, that quiet strength, was God's presence in your life, guiding you, fortifying you, and reminding you that you were never alone in your struggles. Even as a young child, you demonstrated an emotional maturity that allowed you to navigate challenges with a wisdom that belied your years. You understood instinctively that life would not always be easy, and that setbacks were a part of the journey. But what set you apart was your ability to bounce back. When faced with disappointment, failure, or difficulty, you didn't stay down for long. You always got back up, stronger and more determined than before. This resilience was not just a result of your own strength, it was a divine grace working within you, preparing you for the greater purpose that awaited you. Perhaps there were times when others around you were stunned by how you handled adversity. Maybe they saw you face difficult situations with a calmness and poise that seemed impossible for someone your age. It was as though even in the midst of trials you carried an unwavering sense of hope. You showed others that resilience is not just about toughing it out in silence, it's about holding on to faith, even when everything seems uncertain. You taught those around you that there is a strength that comes not from avoiding hardship, but from enduring it with grace, knowing that on the other side of struggle lies growth and transformation. Your unexplainable resilience was a gift, one that equipped you not only to survive but to thrive in situations where others might have been paralyzed by fear or doubt. It was a sign that God was working in you, developing the strength, the character, and the perseverance necessary for the great purpose He had for your life. This resilience wasn't simply a reaction to the challenges you faced, it was a divine quality being forged in you, preparing you for the powerful journey ahead. You may not have understood it then, but every moment of endurance, every challenge you overcame was shaping you for something greater, something that would require the kind of strength that only God could provide. And even now, as you reflect on those moments of unexplainable resilience, you can see how they were the foundation for the purpose that was always meant to be yours. As you look back over your life, particularly during your childhood, there are moments that stand out. Moments when you can clearly see the hand of God moving in your life, guiding and protecting you in ways that were beyond your understanding at the time. At the time, you may have brushed them off as mere coincidences or nothing more than a stroke of luck. But now, with the clarity that comes with reflection, you realize that these were not random occurrences. These were moments of divine favor and protection, clear signs that God was watching over you, orchestrating events and circumstances to safeguard you from harm and guide you toward your purpose. You may recall instances when danger was present, but for some reason you were spared from harm. Perhaps you were in a situation where, by all accounts, things should have turned out differently. Maybe you found yourself in a precarious situation, an accident, a health scare, or a moment where your safety was at risk, and yet somehow you emerged unscathed, as if something had shielded you from the consequences. These were moments that, in retrospect, feel like divine intervention. You might have wondered how you avoided what seemed inevitable. But the truth is, God's protection was at work, holding you in the palm of His hand and keeping you safe from harm, even when you didn't fully realize it. There were also times when the events in your life unfolded in ways that felt too perfect to be mere coincidence. The right people came into your life at the right time, or a situation unfolded in a way that seemed almost too orchestrated to be natural. You might have had a narrow escape, or a seemingly impossible situation resolved in the most unexpected and perfect way. Looking back, these moments stand out as clear evidence of God's guidance and favor. You may have experienced doors opening when you least expected them, or found yourself in the right place at the right time when you couldn't have possibly planned it. These experiences are not the product of chance, but of a higher power at work in your life, directing your steps and protecting you as you navigated the early years of your journey. It's easy to overlook these instances when you're caught up in the busyness of life, but when you take the time to reflect, the pattern of divine protection becomes clear. Even in moments when you were unaware, God was at work, ensuring your safety and preparing you for the greater purpose He had in store for you. Maybe you've had experiences where you narrowly avoided accidents, whether on the road, in nature, or in moments of potential danger, and in those moments, you can now see that something unseen was guiding you, keeping you out of harm's way. Perhaps there were times when you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and yet everything fell into place to protect you from the consequences. These moments were not accidents, they were God's providence. Your childhood might have also been filled with small, seemingly insignificant occurrences that, in hindsight, reveal a greater truth. You were protected and cared for, even when you couldn't understand it. Maybe there were moments when your parents or guardians made decisions that, at the time, seemed inconvenient or unnecessary, but now you can see that these decisions were part of God's protection over your life. Maybe someone offered you a helping hand, a word of advice, or a protective gesture that, in the moment, didn't seem significant. But now you realize that it was God using people to shield you from harm. Looking back, you can see how certain situations unfolded with divine precision. You may have been faced with tough decisions, challenges, or even dangers, but as you reflect, you can clearly see how the outcome was not left to chance. You may have been guided to make the right choice at a critical time, or things may have shifted in your favor in ways that you could never have predicted. God's hand of favor was over you, orchestrating events in a way that set you on a path of safety and purpose, preparing you for the greater calling ahead. These moments of divine protection are a reminder that you were never alone. Even in your youth, when you felt small or uncertain, God was with you, providing the protection you needed to grow into the person you were always meant to be. It's easy to overlook the subtle ways that God moves in our lives, but as you look back, you can see how perfectly everything has aligned, how each step has been guided by divine favor and protection. You were being shaped, protected, and prepared for a purpose far greater than you could have imagined. And every moment of divine intervention was part of the process that led you to where you are today. These signs of protection in your childhood were not just coincidences, they were affirmations of God's loving hand over your life, ensuring that His plans for you would unfold exactly as they were meant to. Even in your youth, there was something magnetic about you, an undeniable presence that drew others in and inspired them in ways you may not have fully understood at the time. It wasn't about seeking attention or striving to be in the spotlight. Rather, it was a quiet, yet powerful influence that came from the core of who you were. People around you sensed it, whether they were aware of it or not, that there was something uniquely special about your character. You didn't have to try to be noticed. Your authenticity, your kindness, and your inner strength naturally captivated those who crossed your path. It may have seemed like a natural gift, but this influence was no accident. Even as a child, you had a way of making people feel seen, heard, and valued. Your presence had a calming, uplifting effect on those around you, and people often found themselves drawn to you without fully understanding why. It could have been a simple conversation, a kind word, or just your ability to be present in the moment that left a lasting impact on others. People felt comfortable around you, and they often looked to you for guidance, support, or inspiration, whether or not you realized you were providing it. This influence wasn't about trying to fit in or impress others. It was a natural outgrowth of your character, your integrity, and the way you carried yourself. Even as a child, you may have found yourself being a leader in small, everyday situations. Whether it was among your friends, classmates, or family members, there was something about you that stood out. People looked up to you, trusted you, and valued your opinion, often turning to you for advice or counsel. You may not have had all the answers, but there was an innate wisdom within you, a sense of clarity that made people feel secure in your presence. Perhaps you were the one who helped others navigate difficult situations, offering them comfort when they needed it most. You might have found yourself in a position where others came to you with their problems, knowing that your calm demeanor and compassionate heart would bring them the support they needed. Whether it was helping a friend through a tough time, encouraging someone who was feeling down, or simply being there when others felt alone, you demonstrated a rare gift for lifting others up, even in the most ordinary circumstances. Your influence also extended beyond words and actions. It was in the way you carried yourself, in your confidence, your humility, and your unwavering sense of self. People saw something different in you, something they admired and wanted to be around. It wasn't about seeking to be a role model or striving for recognition. It was about simply being yourself, and in doing so, you became a reflection of something greater. Your authenticity drew others in, and they found inspiration in the way you lived your life, in the way you faced challenges with grace, and in the way you treated others with kindness and respect. As you grew older, this ability to influence others only became more pronounced. Your character had been shaped over the years, and the more you embraced who you were, the more others were drawn to your light. You didn't have to force it or work hard to stand out. People naturally gravitated toward you because they saw something in you that they wanted to be a part of. It wasn't about popularity or fame, it was about the depth of your character and the authenticity of your spirit. People sensed that you were a person of integrity, someone they could trust and rely on, and that sense of trust was magnetic. This influence wasn't just limited to close friends or family. Even strangers, people who didn't know you well, may have felt your impact in subtle yet powerful ways. You might have encountered people who, after a brief interaction with you, walked away feeling uplifted, inspired, or encouraged. There was an invisible force within you that touched the hearts of those around you, even when you weren't aware of it. Your words, your actions, your very presence had the power to change the atmosphere in a room, to bring light into dark situations, and to help people see the world differently. Looking back, you can now see that this influence was not just a natural gift, it was a sign of God's purpose being cultivated in you from a young age. Your ability to inspire others was not random, it was part of the greater calling that God had for your life. He was shaping your character, preparing you to lead, to inspire, and to impact others in ways that would unfold over time. The influence you had on others as a child was a glimpse into the role you would play in the lives of those around you in the future. It was a reminder that your purpose was never just for yourself, it was always meant to be shared, to uplift and to inspire others along the way. In moments when you may have felt unsure of yourself, remember that this unique ability to influence others was never about you. It was always about the way God was using you to touch hearts, to guide lives, and to create ripples of change wherever you went. Even in your youth, you were a vessel through which His light and love flowed, and this influence was just the beginning of the greater impact you would have on the world around you. In conclusion, when we look back over our lives, especially our childhood, we begin to see the undeniable hand of God at work, shaping us, guiding us, and preparing us for the greater purpose for which we were created. We see how the seeds of greatness were planted within us long before we fully understood their significance. Through our unusual passions, our sense of unfulfilled potential, our resilience in the face of challenges, the protection and favor God bestowed upon us, and the influence we had on others, we begin to understand that we were chosen by God, not by accident, but with divine intention. You were never just another child walking through life. You were and are a unique expression of God's purpose, equipped with everything you need to fulfill the assignment He has placed on your life. The trials, the triumphs, the quiet moments of strength, and the subtle whispers of guidance were all part of the divine preparation for the greater things to come. Every experience, every challenge, every victory has been a step toward the unfolding of the destiny that God has predestined for you. Understand this today, you are not just a survivor of your past, you are a testament to God's purpose in motion. The divine favor and protection you experienced were not mere coincidences, they were His promises being fulfilled in your life, shaping you into the person you are becoming. Your ability to influence and inspire, your resilience, your unexplainable strength, all point to the fact that you are chosen for greatness. As you move forward in life, never forget that the purpose of your life was established before the foundations of the earth, and every step you take brings you closer to the fulfillment of that purpose. Trust that you are not here by chance, and that the world is waiting for the unique contribution that only you can bring. Embrace your calling with confidence, because you were born for such a time as this. Let no challenge deter you, no doubt shake you, and no fear hold you back, because the greater purpose for which you were created will surely come to pass. You are chosen, you are destined for greatness, and the world will be forever changed because of the divine purpose that is unfolding in your life. This influence was just the beginning of the greater impact you would have on the world around you.